everybody, how's it going? I realize that many of us have never actually had the privilege of meeting in person, and if that's the case, my name is Justin, and online I run a YouTube channel called That Christian Vlogger. It's a ministry I started just about 2.5 years ago. It has grown massively beyond what I thought it would ever get to. Today I have over 50,000 subscribers. I get to minister to hundreds of thousands of young people from all across the world every single month. And really, it's a great place to build a community. I've seen lives being changed and all of these different kinds of things. And today, I want to kind of share this series of videos with you with the express purpose and goal of helping you maximize your church's or your ministry's reach online. As many of us believe, we know that the in-person ministry that takes place weekend after weekend after weekend is super valuable. It's super important, but as we're seeing technology evolve, as social media is developing, many of us are starting to see that God is leading us in this direction. We see the example of Jesus multiple times over and over and over, that Jesus went where people were, that wherever they were spending their time, this is where Jesus oftentimes was found. And this is something that we want to apply to today's age. We see people spending up to, some studies are saying like upwards of 18 hours a day on social media or behind a screen of some sort. And many of us are asking the same question, and the question really is this: how can I leverage that fact for the gospel's sake? How can I utilize social media, specifically YouTube, in a way to be able to spread the message that we believe changes lives? That Jesus has in fact come and he's resurrected. He can change your life today and he's coming back soon. And so this series of videos, excuse me for that, this series of videos is really intended to help you learn some of the things that I've learned. When I first accepted the call to do digital missions, I was actually teaching at a Bible college. And up to that point, I really had no experience with manning a camera. I had no experience with editing any kinds of videos or anything else like that. It was just really a step of faith in that direction. I felt that God was calling me to be what I call now a digital missionary, someone whose entire focus as far as mission work and ministry was finding kind of like unchurched or loosely church people, basically out there in the world and ministering to their needs. And so I want to share with you guys really quick before we dive into the series 2 very important statistics. The first statistic really comes from churchleaders.com, and the statistic is this: that now less than 20% of Americans of all ages, this isn't just young people, but less than 20% of Americans of all ages regularly attend church. In fact, a study that was done with over 200,000 Orthodox churches found that on any given weekend, 17.7% of their congregation was actually found in the church building on a given weekend. So we see statistic number 1, church attendance is massively, massively decreasing. And many of us have seen this in our local church or with our local ministries. But the important thing is statistic number 2. And statistic number 2 is, yes, while church attendance is on the decrease, we actually see a really steady and even growing trend of spiritual interest and spiritual practices. So to give you an example, we are actually seeing that 75% of all Americans claim to have prayed at some point within the last week. And in fact, if you were to look at Bible reading habits from 2000 to 2006, you'd actually see an increase from 40% all the way to 47%. And as far as getting involved with volunteering, in 2016, studies show that 1 in 6 Americans would say that they have volunteered either for a nonprofit or a church sometime in the last 7 days. So we're seeing something very, very interesting. That yes, church attendances are on the decrease. Things are changing dramatically, but we are seeing that people are still very much interested in spiritual things. One of the most interesting statistics that I found actually came from the director of the Center for Mission Research of the Southern Baptist Convention, Ed Stancer. This is what he found, was that a growing number of Christians actually are engaging in discipleship in non-traditional ways. In fact, the statistics exactly were this: somewhere in the realm of 6 million people, that's roughly 24.5% of Americans, say that they engage in spiritual discipleship and community and fellowship in groups that are in 20 people or less every single week. In other words, somewhere about a quarter of all Americans very rarely, if never, go to an actual church building, but still are in the practice of fellowship in what we would consider non-traditional realms. They're doing it in small groups, they're doing it online, they're meeting in coffee shops or in people's homes. And so what do these statistics really have to do with digital missions? What does this actually have to do with why we're doing this entire series of video? How does the data support the notion that your church really ought to be investing in digital missions? This is how I see the two being related. Studies are showing that technology is evolving, right? The world is rapidly changing, and more people are perceiving that church is like an ancient relic of the past, that church is no longer necessary, it's no longer important. But what's interesting is that while that's true, that people are perceiving this, that trends are changing, that humankind is essentially the same. Humanity has remained unchanged. We're still the same people that God has created us to be. In other words, church is no longer at the top of their priority, but people still have the kinds of questions that the church has traditionally responded to. The church has been the hub for answers. All people in all stages of life, no matter their age or even their religious background and upbringing, all have the same questions. We're all wrestling with questions of origin. Where did we come from? And our purpose and morality, and where are we going? What is the best way to live a fulfilled life and to be happy and to make an impact on the world? And so where is it now that people are actually turning to find these answers? Historically, traditionally, they've gone to pastors, they've gone to priests, they've gone to their churches to find the answers to these questions. And yet now that they're no longer going to church, they still have these questions, but where are they turning to? To whom are they actually turning to? You see, because thousands of people every single day are questioning their core convictions. They're re-examining their beliefs, but they're no longer doing it in the way that we have seen done in the past. I'll give you a couple examples. 96% of all Americans say that anytime that they have a question, whether it's a mundane question like how to tie a bow tie, where is the local coffee shop, 96% of all Americans say that they actually turn to their smartphones to find an answer. And this totally makes sense. I mean, what do we do anytime that we have questions? Rather than turning to a human being, oftentimes we turn to technology. And what's interesting is we're not only seeing this in the mundane and small things in life, we're actually seeing these in the big picture things as well. For example, did you know that on Google, the phrase, "what happens after death," is searched about 100,000 times every single month? Like, it might seem silly to many of us that this would be a question that people are turning to social media. They're turning to technology rather than human beings and mentors and older and wiser people we're turning to a computer now. But we're seeing this trend over and over and over. In fact, here are a couple other phrases that are searched over 100,000 times every single month. The search phrase, "Is God real?" People are asking the question, what is faith and why does God allow suffering? And over 100,000 people every single month are looking for quote unquote Bible study tools. Like I said before, thousands of people, both old, both young, Christian and non-Christian, are questioning their core convictions. They're asking deep and meaningful questions. But the question for us today is, where are you in that conversation? And really, where am I? Where is our church? Where is our ministry? I want you to think about it in this way. Imagine you were called by God to plant a church, but you had $0. You had no staff and you had no experience. What would success look like to you? If you could, after, one entire year, grow a congregation to 100 people or 200 people, would that be success to you? Of course, any one of us would be so very, very, very happy and feel incredibly fulfilled if our ministries reach hundreds of people after just, 1 year. But I want to challenge you to look at digital missions in the same way. My experience was that in just 12 months, I put out a video every single week. I committed myself to this ministry. And in just 12 months, I grew a community of over 10,000 people. And every time I put out a digital Bible study or a mini sermonette, a video of some sort, including some important truth or life-changing lesson, every time I put out one of those, hundreds of people were flocking to this and learning about it. And so for me, The way that I approach digital missions is not that it's some subpar type of ministry, but to me, it's on par with any other type of ministry. It's just as valuable as the spoken word from the pulpit every single weekend. Why? Because it's not the pulpit that's matter. It's not the church building that actually makes the difference. What makes the difference is the message. The message of a risen and saving Jesus Christ is what transforms people's lives. That message is potent, it's relevant, it has such a relevancy to today's life and to the questions that people are asking today. And so my goal as a digital missionary is to get that same message that's usually preached on the weekends in front of the church congregation. My goal is to take that message, to translate it in the way that it needs to be translated, and then to strategically place it in front of the people that are looking for those questions. And my goal is to spread that message to the four corners of the earth, to preach it to every nation, kindred, tongue, and people, as the Bible says. You know, for the first time in the history of the world, we literally actually have the ability to preach the gospel to the entire world. And to me, that is a very, very exciting place to be. That's a very exciting time to live in. And so if this is something that you're interested in learning how to grow your ministry, to grow your church's influence through social media, this series of videos is for you. We're going to be going through what I call the 10 commandments of digital mission, specifically as it applies to YouTube. We're going to be talking about some tips and tricks, the strategies that are necessary, how you basically grow an audience online with a $0 budget, how you can find new contacts online, how you can basically make a difference through social media. And I'm excited to share that with you guys. My journey is one that I hope can kind of expedite your process and inspire you to make a difference online. And so if this is something that you're excited about, if this is something that you're looking forward to, I can't wait to divulge the 10 commandments, to go through more in depth with all of this content. I'm very, very excited, and I can't wait to talk to you guys in the next video. But until the next one, as I like to say on YouTube, I'm that Christian vlogger, and I encourage you to experience faith in the first person. God bless.